this is, people sometimes ask me, how do you build the ECF program? And I answer the same way always. I say, friends and family. People who I know, people who I respect. I'm out and about, and here's a perfect example. Rick McConnell, we were actually having lunch here in DC, and he was talking about how he's looking forward to ECF, and he said, is there anything I can do to help? And you don't want to ask me that kind of question, because I said, well, yeah, absolutely. It would be great if you could pull together a panel of independents, and that's what he did. Rick?
Very good. Thanks, Sam.
Thank you.
All right.
Gary,
how's everybody doing? I am Rick McConnell, President of North America for Informa Markets. And it's a pleasure for me to talk to you about our topic today, about the brave new world. Y'all remember Aldous Huxley's old book? Anybody around there? Aldous Huxley? Brave New World in the trade show business. And I have a couple panelists that are going to really help us through the topic. We're going to talk a little bit about threats and a little bit about the future. Okay, and depending on your input, it'll determine how much we talk about each. So I have right here is Linda Gray Martin, who is the Senior Director, Chief of Operations for RSA Conferences. I'm going to let her tell you what RSA stands for. We also have Dennis Smith, who is CEO, President, Messe, Frankfurt, Incorporated. So a fairly esteemed panel here, and I think that you're going to find lots of interesting comments, and I'm going to let them talk a little more about themselves so you can get to know them a little better. Linda, why don't you tell us a little more about you?
Sure. So thank you for the introduction. So as Rick said, my name is Linda Gray Martin. I'm responsible for RSA conferences globally. RSA conferences are the largest gatherings of cybersecurity professionals in the world. We have 2 annual events, one in San Francisco for about 42,000 attendees, and one in Singapore for 5,000 attendees. So I'm actually relatively new to the US. I moved here just 5 years ago. I spent my formative days of my career over in the UK.
Very good. Thanks, Linda.
So once again, I'm Dennis Smith. I've been in the industry on a global level for about 28 years. And after moving back to the United States in 2009, I entered this wonderful world of the US trade show industry. I work for Messe Frankfurt. I've been working for this company for 7.5 years, and as many of you know, I will be leaving the company later this year. And I just want to mention that I have the utmost respect for Messe Frankfurt. And I don't know if many of you know, but this company has been around for a long time. To be exact, and Kai, you know this as well, 778 years.
Wow.
So that's quite a sustainable story. And I'm proud to be here on this panel with you, Linda, and Rick. Thank you for the invitation.
Thank you. All right, so without further ado, just kind of want to jump into it. Tell me if if this situation might sound like something you've run into. Your industry, the industry that you serve. The revenue is down by 10% from the prior year. Ouch. Your biggest customer is running their own private event. Same time as yours. Millennials aren't attending your conference because they're getting a lot of information online. They just don't think it's hip enough. And government employees have a travel ban preventing them from coming to your show. Sound familiar? Anybody around here? Raise your hand if any of these situations have ever come your way, right? How about all 4 of them at the same time? And that's a real deal. It really has happened. So what I'd like to do is, and what I'm doing is teeing up kind of this first question. And what we'd like to do is spend some time on that question and listen to our panelists, how they are going to approach. What do you see, and I'd like to hear from the audience at this a little later too, what do you see as the biggest threats to exhibitions and events? So I think I'm going to jump over to Linda first.
Yep.
And why don't you share your thoughts there?
Yeah, so I'm actually going to talk about something that I don't think is really a threat. I think it's just something that we all need to be very conscious of and very aware of, and that is diversity and inclusion. So just to share an experience with you, in our 2018 event cycle, we released our initial keynote lineup, so not the full lineup by any means, the initial lineup, which had just one female speaker. And that provoked a lot of negative criticism about our perceived lack of diversity. So just to give you some context, in the cybersecurity industry, only 11% of roles are filled by women. We ended up actually having 25% of our keynote speakers in 2018 were women, but those numbers are low and they should be much higher. So it galvanized us into proactively putting together a very robust D&I strategy for our 29 event, to help move our event forward, but also to help move the industry forward.
Awesome. So do you feel that you've successfully overcome that problem? Or do you think you're on the path of...
I think we're on the path. So the areas that we focused on primarily was around all our content. We worked really hard to try and up the level of diverse voices on our stages. We worked with a lot of affiliate groups to do this. We have a code of conduct that we promoted very heavily. We were one of the first exhibitions to have a no booth babe policy, so around exhibitors.
Yay!
Woo!
All right.
Thank you. And then, we put a lot of time and effort into creating a comfortable, safe, and respectful environment for our attendees. We had a safe walk program where, the streets of San Francisco can be a little bit dicey. We had increased patrols along the path to the Moscone Center from some of our hotels. We have gender-neutral bathrooms, we have prayer rooms, just all these little things that make a huge difference to our attendees.
Excellent. I think we can all learn from the lesson that Linda shared with us. Dennis, what are the threats? What concerns you? What keeps you up at night?
Well, I think that maybe there are some people in the room that are concerned about their attendance at their events. And one of the threats I am wanting to address today is the potential threat of a declining attendance. And there's three main areas that I wanted to dive into very briefly. One is the generational shift in our market, and how many people here have Generation Zs that are young? And are you able to get them to do anything? I have that challenge. CNBC says that by 2030, the global workforce is going to be made up of 36% of Generation Z. So they are coming. The other important thing to note is that they are a larger workforce base than the millennials and Generation Xers. So the baby boomer generation had one of the largest workforces to come as a generation. Now we can try to figure out these Generation Zers as they begin in the 2020s to enter the workforce. The other thing is I see we have several baby boomers in the audience as well. Well, according to the report that SEER just put out, this Attend DRI playbook, the largest detractors to attendance as exhibitors and or visitors are baby boomers. And I guess we can understand this.
Detractors, what do you mean, Dennis?
Meaning making decisions for their staff or their company to not participate. And I was actually surprised by that. I was expecting it to be a different generation, but understandably so. As you get up in years, maybe you're getting more conservative. But again, this is something that's coming from the research. The other thing is that events, as they grow, and as we're going to get into this topic of personalization, events need to be more relatable and contextual for the attendees. And apart from that, as it relates to diversity and inclusion, a lot of the marketing that we're seeing out there is expected to go towards genders as well. Again, based upon SEER's findings, women tend to look for education and be inspired or moved by the content of the program, and men tend to be more business focused and shopping or commerce focused and networking. So these are two things. And then the final thing I wanted to say on this topic is it all comes down to budgets, and it all comes down to ROI for the attendees. And so we as organizers, we need to make sure that we're still generating the arguments and the correct statistics to show these either exhibitors or attendees that they are going to achieve ROI from their events.
Very good. You've heard from the panelists. There's other things that are out there too, so we want to hear from you. So we're going to do a word cloud, okay? Hopefully I'm getting the technology support here. And in that word cloud, the question is, in 1 word, 2 words, 3 words, you can put multiple entries down, as many as you'd like. Just don't write full sentences. They might not fit in the word cloud. What do you all see as the biggest threats to your exhibitions and your events? So we'll give it a little time, and the words that show up larger are the words that are more commonly found from your answers. Thank you. Okay, so I'm looking at these issues. Wow, we can keep them back up. Let's keep them on the board, I think. But we have issues that are hopping up and showing up in very, very high levels of frequency. Number 1, time, right? Is that ever going to? How do we deal with time? How do we deal with issues? I want to throw that almost out to the audience, maybe. Folks, how do we deal with time as an issue for our exhibitors and our attendees? Is there anything we can do there? A show is a show. You got to make the commitment to go to it, right? Anybody?
Don't waste it.
Make sure that each moment is worthwhile, correct? Yeah, make sure the programming is specific, hard-hitting, touching issues that really matter to that constituency, for sure. Budget. You want to comment on budget?
Yeah, I mean, budget's a concern for everybody, I think, especially when you build in some of these other points, travel, time, budget, they're critical for everybody.
Absolutely.
Dennis.
And just can't get away from it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think everyone here, as we all deal with budgets, have to make sure that even when we're deciding to send our own employees to events, we're looking at what are you going to get out of this. And so we have to ensure that we're driving our messaging and, like we said, personalizing our messaging to show where the customer journey starts and where it ends for the attendees to maximize their time at the shows. And again, going back to the generational perspective, the millennials, they don't want to screw around at shows. And no longer can we view events in terms of we can bring the horse to the water. Well, we have to bring the horse to the water. We have to get them to drink. We have to get them to jump in, have fun, and leave feeling like they've had a great time and they're walking away with a lot of takeaways. So I think that I agree with the results that time is the most important threat.
You know, I agree with the time and budget. There are a couple words here that concern me, more than any of them. Things like economy, recession, consolidation, those things happen to the industries that we serve. We can't really change those things, right? But the things that we can change, the things that are really bothering me, complacency and security. Security is becoming a very real issue. It's actually one of the issues that Linda's show addresses.
Yeah.
I'd like to hear her comments on that, but without getting too specific, there was an event in our industry that we serve, in the pop culture business, where, as you know, people get all crazy and they dress up in funny ways like Batman and Spider-Man and Aquaman and everything else, Wonder Woman. And so there's this show that happened, I won't name the city, that showed up, and there was a guy that dressed up as like a Navy SEAL and had a big semi-automatic weapon loaded and brought it into the facility. He was accosted, we got him, and then brought him in, and nothing happened. But first off, why did the guy come in there? How do you prevent it? What could he have done? And what is the spillover effect on every one of our industries and every one of our shows, right? So security is something, if we don't identify as a threat, we don't get in front of it.
Right.
I think that that's something we ought to keep a very close eye on for all of us.
Yeah, and to add to that, you know, security is something that affects us in our working lives, but also in our personal lives. And I think that's, you know, our conference has grown pretty substantially in the last 8 to 10 years, and I think that's the reason why. You know, it's everywhere these days. You know, even my 85-year-old mother uses an iPad and has to fight off phishing attempts, you know, but it affects all of us.
It really does.
Just following up on privacy, everyone here is aware of the privacy laws, GDPR. This situation is not going away. In fact, it's going to become more and more difficult to maintain data on our customers. And obviously, we have the GDPR that rolled out last May in Europe. We have the new privacy laws of California. Other states are going to jump on this bandwagon. South America, China, everyone is coming up with their own version of privacy laws. And so this is going to require not only investment to take precautions, it's a process of getting all of your customers' approval to be able for you to house not only their addresses, but the other statistical data about them. So this is one thing. The other thing that I wanted to mention is someone mentioned the trade war, and this is the elephant in the room, if you will, in terms of our relationship as the United States with other countries around the world. And this is a serious subject, in my opinion, and we can't get this wrong, because our position with China right now is extremely critical, and I'm sure many events are already feeling some form of impact.
Yeah.
With restrictions on visas, and obviously our tariffs that are, I don't know if any of them are even in place right now, but it's just incredible the direction that this is going. The new NAFTA has to get through Congress because it's been negotiated, it's ready to go. This is only delaying progress, and I guess I'm the one to say officially that we can't screw this up.
Agreed. Megan, is Megan here? Megan, so we have a friendly competition in the shows that you run and the shows that we run. And I'd like to get your take on what you view as potentially a threat to your event, let's say ConExpo, or a threat to anyone else's event.
Well, I want to know what a rump event is and why there are too many. I'm very concerned about that, and if we should all be concerned about that. But I think when I look at the words that are up here, I'm actually I feel good about the range, and that people are seeing more issues than maybe some of us think. There's always those big ones, like you pointed out, but besides the easy things or the short-term things, which are big, I worry about the future of the industry without us coming to some sort of common ground about what value is, how we measure ROI, and how we incorporate exhibitions into marketing strategies. So, anybody here who has a marketing degree, I'm going to guess that you didn't learn much about exhibitions when you went to college or university or anything like that. You learned about...
Can I have a quick raise of hand? Who studied to be a trade show executive in college? In the room, anybody?
One person there.
There's one here.
One person raised.
That's a
raised
generational
Two.
thing now, right? Those of us that fell into it versus those that actually went to school for it. But if you go to school for marketing, you're not learning about exhibitions and how they can be a viable part of any sort of marketing campaign. And so you leave it up to, I think, historical, old school, or it's always been this way to get those people to engage in this industry. So I do look at it a little bit different, besides all these other things, besides how I work collaboratively with Informa and whoever else is out there, right, in certain areas. To me, that's a big part of this, and that's where I think old school business practices is coming from, and there's ROI up there, antiquated business models, how are we charging the exhibitors? I go through this all the time. Our members are our exhibitors, and they're questioning the value of trade shows.
Yeah.
And I'm going to say it's not my shows because we show them that value. It's all of your shows I'm just kidding, that you're not showing enough of the value out there for them to really buy in on a consistent basis.
Thanks, Megan. Appreciate that. All right, so we aren't going to spend the whole time worried about threats, okay? We're going to move off this topic in just a second. A couple of other that didn't really kind of show up here is that, the old club is getting smaller. Kind of know what I mean by that, right? There's a lot of 55 and up year old people that are not going to be around and to attend events in the long term. There's a breaking up of some of the horizontal facing and vertical facing events that we run with more and more specialization, and that specialization is delivered via specific conferences, those kinds of things, right? That's all in front of us. Corporate events. I talked to somebody at lunch today saying that, one of our biggest customers just decided to open up a show, not a showroom, but a hotel room, a suite, and run something out of there right during their events. Are we really connecting with millennials in the right way? Are we hiring millennials? Are we empowering millennials? Are they developing strategy? If not, we're not really serving millennials, in my opinion. The international invasion, which is not exactly what you were talking about,
Yep.
but the further cutting up of the pie with more and more folks focusing in on the United States, and the United States focusing on other countries as well. And what that, I think, is going to do is just take that pie and just make it in smaller slices. So those are some things that I think we all need to think about. Hopefully they won't keep you up at night. But now we want to move on to the topic that I think is a little more interesting, okay? Although I think the last one was a good one too. I will blame that one on Sam, that last one. What will be the biggest change to exhibitions and events in 5 years, 2024? How are our events going to look differently? And I think this is a meatier topic. I think this is a more forward-looking topic. I think we should look at it in a way of how we can actually impact it and make and speed up that change in a more favorable way for the trade show industry. And I'd love to hear what our panelists have to say.
Yeah, absolutely. So just building on what Megan was saying about value, I think we're going to see a lot more personalized and curated experiences in the next few years. I think, we have much more sophisticated tools to be able to mine data, to really figure out what it is that our attendees want. And then on the event platform side, we again have more sophisticated ways to serve up content based on people's wants and needs. So I think we're going to see a huge increase in proliferation of personalization and curation.
Mm-hmm. Huge, important.
Increased activation. Our shows are going to be less about the floor space. The way we design our floor plans is already changing.
Dennis, define activation, how you're defining it for me.
Well, I think that the days are going where you just get your pipe and drape booth and you set up out your brochures and maybe a few samples, your little spongy toys that you give to people, and you basically hope that someone crosses that invisible line. Activation means there has to be some compelling reason for someone to breach the edge of your booth. And we shouldn't be thinking about floor plans in terms of geometrical aisles and rows. We should be thinking about activation areas that may not involve exhibitors. It may be a plethora of exhibitors coming together to generate an experience for the attendees. And this could be done through sponsorships and some collaboration within trade shows. So I think that we're going to be under demand from our exhibitors and the expectations of our attendees to come up with something different to keep them coming.
Agreed. Kimberly. Ha, I'm going to call on you. Okay. Do you have a microphone?
Yeah.
See, that's why I called on you.
Can I ask a question instead of answering one?
Okay.
Is that allowed? So I was just wondering, like, Dennis, what you were talking about in terms of, trade shows going off the 10 by 10 grid. Like, are there, I don't know, this is for anybody, I guess, are there any really good examples out there of organizers who have already done this and who have really, like, redesigned their show floor in an innovative way?
You want me to hop on that one?
Yeah.
I think one of the best ways that could be done is a lot of the shows that we serve touch the construction industry. And a construction professional, as an example, wants more than anything to know how things are built. How does the tool work? How is design figured out? How does it all come together? How is the plan developed, right? So injected right into the show floor, you're seeing more and more experiential, not just booths, but sponsorship opportunities, either on a common area, what we call a workshop, where somebody buys a section of time, or clinics, where they're topical clinics that actually pros are hired to actually show how processes are done, whether it's stair building, window hanging, mold removal, you name the topic within construction. And I think that is that interactive element that happens, and it makes that pipe and drape become alive. And that's going to set someone's show experience apart from where they've been in the past. Okay, so that is one tool that I think we have. Tool, no pun intended there, but I do think that is a good way to do that. Any other comments from the panelists?
If I can just kind of answer your question with a bit of an anecdote from South Africa, and this is South Africa. This very well could be in the United States. We, as Messe Frankfurt, we purchased an international motor show, and less than 12 months after we purchased it, the Dealers Association came to us with all the OEs and said, "We're done. We don't want to show anymore." And something similar is happening in Detroit right now, and in Frankfurt as well. So what we did is we looked at this challenge of our static, old school auto show, and we said we need to turn this into a live event. And so basically we redesigned the concept. We selected a racetrack, and we went to the OEs and talked to them about what are your main goals. And they basically said to us in South African speak, "We want bums in seats. That's what we want." And so we designed this whole experience for attendees, and it's a B2B/B2C experience. And I know that shows like the toy show are moving somewhat in this direction. I don't want to speak for you, but I think you guys have done an incredible job there. But ultimately, the first 2 days of the show, we separated for press and dealers only. And then the rest of the days are totally public-oriented, totally B2C, and we have gained back almost 28 brands back to the show. And this is a huge success for a show that was basically dead because of the structure of the floor plan and the experience that the attendees were having, and now where we're at. And it's the Festival of Motoring, if anyone wants to look it up.
Very good.
In Jayburg.
I will answer a question if you have one too.
I'd really like, I see the word technology screaming at me here, right? Screaming at me. Technology is the biggest word here. Kimberly, you're in the marketing agency business, and you help people with solutions in the trade show business, right? So help me with how you think technology can be applied to help make trade shows more successful 5 years from now or next week.
So one of the things our customer journey architect is doing is performance modeling and performance marketing, which I think, back in the day, like your campaign was direct mail and you didn't know if it was working or not until registration opened, and then people started registering later and later. But what we're doing now is setting our attendance goals and then figuring out how much engagement we need at each stage of the customer journey, how many visits we need to our registration page, how much engagement with emails, with social, et cetera, needs to happen to drive that amount of traffic to the website, to get the registrants we need to get the attendance. So to me, like using technology to actually know how many people are going to show up at your event, if your campaign is working, and also to know these things in real time so you can be agile and you can pivot when things aren't working. So that's one of the cool things we're doing with technology right now.
Very helpful. You all put the word technology up here, so is there anybody else that wants to maybe comment on how they're using technology to be more impactful? We need a microphone. Yeah, absolutely. We're just going to get you a microphone.
Not that we're doing it yet, but we have some clients looking into, and it was mentioned earlier, I believe, during the MDG session, is the fact that having a personalized interaction based upon that attendee's behavior. So if that attendee, and again, Beacon or what have you, goes here, 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 and here, as you're marketing to them the next year, use that information to say, this is why you need to be here.
Yep, excellent.
Yeah, and I think that goes to the whole personalization
No doubt.
Thank you.
element.
doubt.
And one other thing that I wanted to throw out here as well is going back to the previous conversation about time. You know, there are so many pressures on us as business professionals and as humans just to get everything done. And I think we're going to see a change to potentially the length of conferences and exhibitions, and also the amount of time that individuals are willing to spend at conferences and exhibitions. And I think we need to take that into account. You know, create an environment where people do have the opportunity to sit and make calls and catch up on their day jobs while they're at an event.
Absolutely. Yep.
Yeah, and obviously my biggest topic was technology, and although I'm not a technology expert, I think one of the biggest impacts we're going to have is 5G. 5G, expanding the bandwidth, is going to open so many opportunities for us. Digital signage, it's been around for a long time, but digital signage and intuitive displays are going to help increase the attendee experience, and it's going to help organizers basically deliver information and content rapidly.
No doubt.
So we have a question on the second screen technology, which is,
Sure.
why are they only talking about ROI? Are we missing out on a bigger conversation about return on objectives and return on experiences as well?
Well, I think if you look at the top 3 reasons why people attend trade shows, right, almost without exception, particularly this one here, is networking, education, and new products, right? Finding those are the 3 that keep showing up in various orders depending on what show you might be, or what industry you might be serving. So I think facilitating networking, right, may not be a direct ROI kind of metric, but certainly what it does is it connects people in ways that they may find some new strategy to apply in their business, some new trade show technique, some new marketing tool. We have these new technologies that are going to be presented to us at the end of the day, and those kinds of things are incredibly valuable, that are really helping people return on objectives, not necessarily return on investment. But I think it's a good way to think.
Yeah.
Anybody else
No,
want to
no,
comment on the objective part?
Just the fact that marketers, event marketers around the world, and to include the United States, are focused on customizing the customer journey, and it's before the show, during the show, off the show floor, on the show floor, and that has to be completely in line with meeting their objectives. So I totally agree with that. But at the end of the day, the ROI, I believe, encompasses all of these, because return on investment, if the company is making the investment to attend, they're coming in with certain objectives in any case.
Right.
And it's not only a financial ROI, but again, a lot of organizations around are looking at increasing cost to attend, increasing cost to attend. It comes down to time. Do I need 3 hotel nights, 2 hotel nights? These are basic things, but they are affecting the attendance at our shows.
Affecting the cost as well.
Yeah.
Sam, you have a question?
Yeah, I have a question for all 3 of you when it comes to thinking 3 years in advance, 5 years in advance. What about profitability? It's something nobody really likes to talk about, which is we're a very, very profitable industry. Our margins are really, really high. Are there any discussions, among your 3 organizations where people are starting to say, look, down the road, we're not going to be able to get those margins anymore because we have to invest more?
I think so, and I think in some ways technology is going to make us keep our costs down in terms of our marketing expense, which is obviously a positive thing in terms of profitability. But I think there's some business models out there that we don't wake up and look at these business models, and those include Tom Shoes, Bombas socks. Do you guys know Bombas socks? Mm-hmm. Every pair of socks that you buy from Bombas, they donate a pair for somebody in need. Tom's Shoes, the same thing, okay? If you want to continue to connect with millennials and Gen Zers, the importance of causal marketing and giving back to the community as part of your business model, not just saying, I'm going to walk in the door and I'm going to donate $2 to Haiti because there was a terrible flooding problem, right? That's not enough. It's got to be more than that. It's got to be embedded in your business model. Those are the kinds of things we're starting to look at more and more, and I would highly encourage those of you that have the ability to influence those kinds of decisions to look at that business model, and if it doesn't have some sort of a give-back element into it, we may be missing a very real opportunity. We may not be around in 10 years.
Yeah, I would agree. And, I think you hit the nail on the head, Sam. Obviously, profitability is important to everybody. But if we don't create the value, the experience, the personalization, and create ROI, people aren't going to be coming to our events.
Very true.
And I think the majority of our attendees, some of the largest shows in the U.S. are in attendance, and together with a revision of the way we're designing our shows, and how we're cultivating our shows to a point where it's just going to be such a different model. What is our most profitable product that we promote? I would say it's sponsorships, and I think realigning ourselves with our sponsors and talking to our key exhibitors and again discussing what their objectives are is going to create some new models for pricing, and that I believe those are going to be more profitable for the organizer.
Any questions back here?
Speaking of models, and more of a comment, I think 5 years ago when we asked our exhibitors and asked our attendees, why you are coming, it had more to do with making those business deals. Not saying that hadn't gone away. It's probably gotten better, but the feedback is not, that's the main reason anymore. It gets back to what you were talking about on networking. And the model that we have, and I've attended some and exhibited at some international shows, and it's that engagement, it's bringing in hospitality, food and beverage, and it's almost that in the U.S. we got to break that model. We've got the exclusive providers at the facilities that charge exorbitant amounts of money. We can't go outside and get any outside catering. I go to some of these other international events, and the exhibitors like to bring their culture to their booth, and it doesn't include some of the folks that we're using. I'm not bad-mouthing that, but we need to evaluate the whole model of what we're doing to improve that engagement and use that networking opportunity.
I think it's giving the exhibitor more freedom to do what they want in their individual space, right? I think
their option is to take it outside and do it themselves.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. Right.
We have another question right here.
Actually, yeah, it's more of a comment. You mentioned before about 55 to 65-year-olds, which I count myself as one of that demo, is going away eventually. And one of the things that we've done in our association is to create a lot of workforce development content around events. We work with academics and others in the field that want to help draw more young people into the industry. And that's really working a lot for us. It's helping us mostly here in the US. In Asia, you see a lot of young, fresh faces in Asia. They have a younger population. They're definitely far more interested. But we've been integrating a lot of those attendees and ensuring this future success by bringing more people into the industry using workforce development content and working with colleges and universities, and even as young as programs for people as young as middle school. Yep. to try and get them interested in the industry and pull them in.
Can I just comment on that? It was a strange situation for us. We're organizing an automotive aftermarket show, and several of our key accounts and some of our sponsors came to us and said, we would like to do a session with only females, and we would like their ages to be between 15 and 18. And we were like, what? And because they said, because we want to talk to them about the industry and opportunities for them, and we want to talk to them about how we can subsidize their education and show them that the automotive industry or the automotive aftermarket aftermarket industry isn't only about male mechanics. It's everyone has a role to play, and everyone has an opportunity. If you want to be a mechanic, you can be a mechanic. If you want to be someone working in the corporate world at a company like Napa, you can do it. But it was incredible just to watch. We had about 300 young women, and it was incredible to watch the interaction between the speakers and the audience.
We have time for one more question. Okay.
Hey, sorry, it's more of a comment and a question, and it's something that I thought about listening to other comments. It involves younger generation and generational marketing and recognizing and appreciating the needs and requirements of the next generation, and something that we used to talk about 5 years ago, but nobody talks about anymore, was sustainability. And we're terrible stewards of our environment, terrible stewards. But when you think about the younger generation, they're much more interested in making a difference on this topic. And I can say that, having polled exhibitors and buildings and suppliers and talked to everybody about it, nobody's really interested in that right now because it costs money and it's good to do it, but it's not good business right now. So I don't know if you guys have done anything on that topic.
Actually, we've hired a corporate sustainability guy that Ben Wheel gets out of London. He has now a team, and they rank all the Informa shows based on a very specific set of sustainable standards. And when shows like, let's say, a green build, obviously that's green sustainable construction, that show scores very highly on that scale. It's a big deal. It's a priority of the CEO, the leadership of the company, and those that are not scoring well, it's looked upon in a very negative light, and it does affect people's MBOs. So we have made it a priority within our company, but it's a responsibility we all need to take on.
Yeah, absolutely. We have several sustainability measures at our conference. I know Moscone Center in San Francisco is also a very sustainable, they have a good sustainability program and environment. I'm sure, Dennis, you have the same.
German companies are very sustainably focused.
Absolutely.
We have a lot of sustainable elements to our event, especially in New York City for our fabric show, and then as well we have a waste and recycling show in Canada, similar to Waste Expo, where we have tried to make this the most sustainable event in Canada. We actually take all the waste that's produced at the show, to include the carpet, and we have someone sifting through all of that, and we're recycling nearly 100% of the waste from the show. So that's something that we've done.
All right, we have time for one more short question.
One short.
And one.
Come on, make it a doozy.
I got it right here. And one answer if an answer is needed. One and one.
Hi.
Go ahead. Yep, go ahead.
Okay, quick question. We have recently decided to put a happy hour in the middle of our show to allow people to feel like that networking component works. And we've seen some return on that. How often do you get a chance to do that in your shows?
Oh, alcohol always
Yeah,
works.
generally not in the middle of the day, unfortunately. But
In Frankfurt, every show.
We try to spot different, let's say an alcohol station might be a pina colada station, or it could be a mojito station, that kind of thing, and put them in key spots on the show floor to keep people there a little bit later, and it's worked pretty well. That's a great point.
All right, thank you very, very much.
Thank you.
Watch your step. Good job, good job. Thank you. Okay.
Thank you, Seth.
Thank you very much. All right, that was a interesting look into what some of our biggest issues are and some of our issues moving forward in the next 5 years. And Gary, I worked for Gary Shapiro many years ago, and he's still giving me action items. So Gary mentioned that, hey, that'd be a good thing to put up 5 years from now. So we will capture this and show it also 5 years from now.